digital age. We're Zooming, live streaming, and relying on technology like never before. Digital technologies were a lifeline during the pandemic, keeping workers working, families connected, schools operating, and students learning. But as we begin to imagine life post-COVID-19, many of us are wondering, are we spending too much time on our computers? One of the big lessons from the pandemic was that technology, for all its many uses, will never replace in-person instruction. Great teaching, an absorbing curriculum taught by teachers who know how to connect with students, is at the heart of all learning. Of course, technology does have a place in the classroom, and it can be a powerful teaching tool. Here to talk about how Canyon's district classrooms use technology sparingly but strategically to support learning are educational technology specialists Dr. Camille Cole and Justin Andersen. Welcome to Connect Canyons, you two.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The powerful influence of technology in our lives is not to be taken lightly, which is why our schools are very thoughtful about how we use technology in the classroom. Now, as educators, we know we must prepare the future workforce for the demands of knowledge-based world in which everyone will be required to use technology, while also keeping in mind that learning comes first and that technology must always support learning. Now, Dr. Cole, when you train teachers how to use technology in the classroom, what advice do you give them?
A lot of what you just talked about, first and foremost, being very thoughtful about how we use technology in our classrooms. In fact, this applies to any training we do, not just anything technology related. We always start with teacher clarity, meaning we tell our teachers to really look at the core standards and what is supposed to be taught within the classrooms, and then identifying what we call learning intention success criteria, which others might know as like the learning objectives. But the learning intentions is letting students know, here's what you're going to be learning about. The success criteria is how the students are going to demonstrate that they've learned something. And that's where the teacher can really identify, is technology going to support this? Or is it okay just to stick with something simple like a pencil and paper, or it's just dialogue back and forth with a person? But it really is being strategic and thoughtful about when to utilize technology and when it's okay to say, I don't need technology for kids to actually be doing something. Like there's ways to approach it to be very thoughtful in their implementation.
And I think Canyons does a great job of making sure that we're focusing on those student-centered pieces and what we want our students to do instead of the shiny object, right? So because a lot of times when new things came out, like I remember teaching when the iPad came out, and that was the cool new thing. Every classroom needed to have it, and there was almost this attempt to try and fit it into things where it necessarily didn't fit. And Canyons really has taken that focus of, okay, there might be a cool tool that we've offered or provided in a school, but where does it fit best? Not, oh, this is in your classroom, please use it. But does it fit here? You know, there's times when it isn't needed and used. And then there's times where it is a valuable tool to help students not only gain the skills that their teacher's trying to learn around the, content they're learning, but also those skills, those soft skills for when they get a job, go to college, and how to understand and use that technology in a safe, responsible way under the direction of a teacher who has the training around how to use that.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to ask you a little bit later to kind of elaborate on how we are using technology. But before I do that, let me just ask. So during the pandemic, of course, we did have to rely on technology a little bit more just to make sure that kids, we kept them safe and learning. And I'm sure teachers picked up some additional technology-based skills. So what are some of the things that teachers learned that they're putting into practice now, do you think?
So I think teachers, definitely the pandemic and during the school dismissal, really, there was a plethora of options and ideas. And so teachers explored a lot of different things. And I think what they came back to and what we're seeing in our classrooms today is a tried and true understanding of smart technology use, that it's not great for everything, that it is powerful in some things. And the most important thing is that communication piece that technology provides for our teachers to our students, our teachers to our families, our schools to our families and community. And then I think they've also figured out what type of activities were successful. Teachers really kind of were inundated by big tech at the beginning of the pandemic to say, here's a cool fancy thing, use it for your kids, it'll help. And I think through that process, our teachers realized that the cool, fun, fancy thing isn't that best thing. And we're seeing in our classrooms today, our teachers are really being smart and decisive about what technology is being used in their classroom and how they're using it. It is not something that is consistently, living on a a student's desk, but it's something that's pulled out for a specific purpose and given that specific tool to.
And I want to add on to something Justin talked about. He briefly talked about communication, because I think something that teachers learned, and I actually heard some students in a training that I sat in when they were talking about their experience through the pandemic and remote learning, but how important communication is with your students and families. But then on top of that, students still craved connection with their teacher. And so thinking about the technology resources, platforms, whatever we have available for them to use to help those connections going forward. So like the utilization of Google Meet or Zoom to have some face-to-face interaction and a way to bring students in who maybe aren't in person, but a way to bring this virtual world together, or having some type of hybrid model so kids can still participate live, in classes, or how can you create connections using something like Canvas that we have in our district, where Canvas is not replacing our teacher. It's not suddenly what's teaching the students the specific content, skills, whatever, but it is a way to help that connection, to stay connected to school, to stay connected to the learning, whatever the results might be. Because as part of the pandemic, we realized, oh my goodness, when we have someone absent, how can Canvas be utilized to really support and continue the learning? Or how can Zoom or these virtual platforms help students stay connected with their teachers so they can still create those relationships? Because it was very powerful to me to hear these students talk about how they craved and they still needed that connection with their teacher more than just an email. Like they needed something to just continue that relationship, because I don't know, sometimes we assume that students don't want that relationship with their teacher, but I think they actually do, and they crave it and they need it, and some really do need it to be successful.
So an example of where that might, come in handy would be like you have a student on, who's out sick for a while, maybe has had surgery or a long-term illness, right? That student can, in many ways, still participate with the rest of their peers,
right? Still
participate with the teacher, connect with the teacher, visually, through sound. You can pipe their sound back into the classroom, right?
Right.
And in the case of Canvas, in many ways, that is like full transparency about what's going on in the classroom, and such a powerful communication tool for parents. I mean, I'm a parent in the Kansas district. I have students, and I can go and I can look at all of their courses, and I can see, okay, well, the teacher hasn't, when you ask your kid, how come what's going on with your grade here? And like, well, I turned it in, but the teacher hasn't graded it. Well, I can actually go find out, right? If that's true. And then I can also see, oh, wow, what a fascinating subject. And I can have a conversation about my kids about, whatever, research paper that they've been tasked with writing. I mean, I just think it's really opened a window onto the classroom, and for many parents, if they're willing to take advantage of it and want to take that step to get involved.
Well, and I'll tell you, I suddenly became the not favorite aunt at Thanksgiving one year when I found out my nephew, who goes to a school in our district, wasn't doing so well in classes, and my sister's like, I don't know how to check on what he's doing, and I'm like, don't your teachers use Canvas? And he looked at me like, don't do it. Say anything, don't do it. And I'm like, there's a way. And suddenly my sister is now an observer in Canvas, so she can get more of a story of what's happening in the classroom, and she doesn't have to depend on my nephew, who's, like I said, I'm not the favorite aunt right now, but I was able to at least let my sister know, here's how you can be checking in on what he's supposed to be doing and what's happening in the classroom. And so it really helped her be able to support her son better.
Yeah. All of our parents have the ability to set up an observer account in Canvas and see all of their students in one place. And so if a parent doesn't have that done yet, they can contact their school, contact their office, and they can help them kind of get the information they need. It's also on the district website. There's a document on how to connect to your Canvas.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And also, I mean, I don't know how many parents know this, but Canvas also is sort of provides a level of security for us as well, right? So if teachers, for example, were going to showcase an educational YouTube video, they would embed it in their Canvas page, and that precludes the video from like showing, how YouTube shows you like the next recommended video.
Or like the related ads that come part of that.
All the ads and all those things.
So it's a security thing as well.
Yeah, we're really focused on making sure that our students have the most safe environment to learn in person and online. And Canvas really provides that option for our teachers to be flexible in what they want to do in their curriculum, and our parents and our students to access those things, and then in a safe way where we're not getting ads, we're not getting pop-ups and things like that, and all of that information is contained in one place.
So let me get to some tangible examples of it, some other ways that we use technology. I'm sure it looks a little bit different in the elementary level than it does at a middle school or a high school, but I don't know, give me an example of how it does truly help kind of move the ball forward, or, give teachers, they can leverage that tool to like bring home a concept they're trying to teach?
I think every student in the district is unique and learns in a different way. And that is one of the most powerful things in education, and one of the scariest things as a classroom teacher. When I'm in the classroom, I've got, 30 students looking at me who all learn or are at different levels. And so my trying to reach all of those students and being the best teacher I can be is enhanced by having that technology, because then I'm able to provide other activities, other learning resources for students through a digital means that they can access in class or at home. I can provide extended learning for those students who, they get it, they got it, they're awesome, but they want to do more, right? Or their parents, I had a student, their parents would always ask, hey, can you send home something else for him to do? Like, we need something more for the student to do. My daughter's teacher, she has a sign up on the board, and if you want a worksheet to work on over the weekend, you can write your name and she'll assign you an extra assignment in Canvas to work on the weekend for those kids who want to do more. Mm-hmm. So it lets us really individualize for those students, and then it allows us to see and support those students who maybe aren't accessing or getting the concepts that we're trying to get to them, and making sure we're providing other of those resources. So whether it's through Canvas and providing extra videos or a reading that they can access, or having the ability to have the students submit something and a teacher grade it in Canvas, provide feedback notes, maybe a video feedback, because sometimes my students wouldn't look at the papers I passed back in class, but as a teacher, they could make a video in response to a student about talking about their essay they turned in or an assignment, and have that feedback loop, that two-way kind of conversation with students that they might engage in a more likely to engage in than they would maybe passing a paper out with a red mark on top.
Well, I know an example I witnessed, because I was there helping the teacher, is we have something called Google Expeditions, which is some virtual reality glasses that teachers can check out from us, and they can go to the classroom. And it was really interesting to see this teacher. It was a dual immersion Chinese teacher who, I think during that week, they were talking about geographical landscapes or features within China. And so she took her kids to the Great Wall of China using these virtual reality goggles.
Oh, wow.
So is this something that she would use these goggles every day, all day? No, but she found this purpose. And not only were kids learning about the Great Wall of China from seeing pictures, they actually got to virtually be there. So it's kind of fun to see the excitement and hear the kids talk about it, because then the teacher would stop every so often and say something about what they were seeing. So it was a really cool immersive experience. Yeah. And then even just thinking about what teachers, specific assignments teachers have used just to really allow students to demonstrate they understand something versus just answering questions like on a quiz or a test, like building a slideshow using Google Slides where they can actually, I think I saw an animal report once in first grade where they had specific criteria they were looking for, and yes, first grade, but they could do that. Every slide had something different that they learned about this animal. Yeah. And so I just love seeing teachers use that as a way to allow students to, like you were talking about creativity, Justin, it's using their creativity and being able to, and even before students get to the slideshow, they don't just go onto Google Slides and start creating. There's actually a planning process using pencil and paper to really storyboard out what they're going to do. Because we all know, how many of us can actually go to Google Slides and just suddenly do a presentation on everything? We kind of plan it out first. Right. And so it's part of that learning process where we're not using technology yet. We're going to actually plan it out. Pen, pencil, paper. Now we're going to put it onto Google Slides. So think about all of those skills that's really being implemented in those. That activity.
I know my high school kids, they use all kinds of things from spreadsheets, right, to, word processing tools to, you know, like you mentioned the video, they'll make short videos. They had some of my kids were helping, campaign for something. And so they made, campaign videos. And so, yeah. Yeah,
it's really used. And I think it's one of those soft skills that employers are looking for in just the general population today, and that we're being able to provide our students in a safe kind of instructable place, right? Where teachers can teach them not only what, the content they're doing, but how to use a product, how to use some sort of technology, but the best ways to use it, what's safe about it, what things to avoid, and can really kind of do that under that supervised environment with the control of our network and those safeguards we put in place to protect students. I know in high school, in 12th grade, students have to put together a portfolio. And this portfolio used to be it kept in a manila folder that they would keep papers that they had written and essays and things, all of these things they'd have to turn in at the end of the year to get this credit. And the number one thing that would happen, it would be lost, right? Papers were everywhere. Papers would be stained. Teachers couldn't, everything happened. And we helped support them in creating virtual portfolios for students. They're using a Google site with their CSD Docs account, and they're creating these virtual portfolios that then they are taking, not only getting the credit in school here, but they're taking them to college and using them as a showcase for getting college credit for certain things as well. And so we're really utilizing technology along with the instruction to empower our students in school till 12th grade and then past that as well.
Yeah. You mentioned the sort of soft skills and job skills, right? The employers are looking for. How does technology used in the classroom to help students learn to collaborate or work as a team? Do we use it in that way as well?
Oh, for sure. So our district has what we call our Google instance. It's Google Drive, but it was CSD Docs, which essentially gives all of our teachers, our students access to the Google Suite, so Google Docs, spreadsheets, Sheets, Google Slides, which is all collaborative. Okay. And so it really is, but once again, you can't just assume people know how to do that and do it appropriately. It's teaching those skills of here's how you work together as a group, here's how you collaborate on a document, how to be respectful when working with one another, because those are skills, right? You have to teach. You can't, even as an adult, I've worked with some adults who I'm like, you need some help with collaboration. But it's those types of skills, but we definitely have that, and Canvas allows us to support that as well. And so once again, it's going back to, I'll probably be a broken record when I say those learning intention success criteria. It's really thinking about the objective that needs to be met and what tools can be best, if at all, to get there. Because maybe it's not doing something on Google Docs, it's actually sitting together, talking. Right?
I think collaboration, if you think about kind of the old terms, like when I was in school and I had a class project, a group project, we had to plan time to meet after school to work on this Word document we were working on or go to the library, all of these kind of extra pieces. And now with students having the ability to collaborate with Google, they can, with their CSD Docs, they can do that virtually. They can say, hey, you all need to do this assignment. They work on it in class. They fill out, teachers have graphic organizer that they fill out with pencil and paper. And then they say, okay, now your project is to make a slideshow. Billy, you're in charge of slide 1 and 2. John, you're in charge of 3 and 4. And so they can go and work on those at home in the same place and on the same document, and then come back the next day and give each other feedback and all of those things without having to set up an extra time to go to the library or staying after school when they have an athletic or an extracurricular activity. And so it really provides that communication tools and those collaboration tools. But then also on top of that, the flexibility for our teachers. I was subbing in a classroom just last week, and we were reading a story that I'd passed out on paper about a covered bridge. And we're second graders, and they weren't quite understanding what a covered bridge was. And I was able to just real quick connect my computer, put it up on the board, on the projector in the classroom, and show them. And we kind of looked at, and we found a YouTube video of someone, 30 seconds of someone driving through a covered bridge. And that was just such a light bulb moment for some of those students to be able to see, oh, that's what you're talking about. And I quickly pivoted to some technology, and then we went back to their workbooks and the books they had on their desks, and we kept reading, and their understanding of that story was they were talking about lunch. I went out to recess. They were making covered bridges with their hands, and then the students were driving through the covered bridge, and I was like, that's adorable. And I don't know that they would have gotten that necessarily just from that one reading text, but because we were able to supplement that with just here's a quick 30-second video of what that looks like, students were able to grasp kind of that concept to then move on to that next level.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I love hearing about intentions, and because it sort of speaks to how, as a profession, what teachers are doing is very intentional, and they're putting a lot of planning and effort into, okay, how can I use technology, or what should I do? Here's my day. Here's how I'm going to map out my day instructionally. But then there's also those little candid moments where you're just making a decision, right, in the moment to reach your students.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's clear that we're not just plopping students in front of screens. And there's been a great deal of research about the perils of too much screen time for children. And I know educators are equally concerned about this as parents are, right? So do we have a sense of how much screen time or how much time Canyon students are spending on computers at school? Do we have any idea?
What the data is showing us right now is that our students, on average, during a school day, are spending about 37 minutes on their Chromebooks on average. Some obviously a little more, some a little less, but throughout the middle and the elementary and middles, it's about 37 minutes, and it's about 32 minutes in the high school level. And so it's really kind of powerful to see that on an average daily basis where they're actually spending their screen time at, right? And that's just those minutes. But then when we're talking about what they're actually doing on screens and the types of screen time that we're getting to, that kind of broadens and opens that up a little bit.
Right, because not all screen time is created equal, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to use it before we go to sleep. We want to be surfing TikTok or getting sucked into endless stream of YouTube videos. So what, you've talked before about sort of this food pyramid, right?
Yeah,
Almost of screen time.
This digital diet, right? This balance. So if you think about the food pyramid we all learned in school, a lot of research, one of the kind of silver linings of the pandemic is a lot of research has been done on screen time in these last, about 3 years to kind of just see what's going on. And the research is finding that screen time is not necessarily the end-all be-all of bad things. It's what type of screen time. So there's, gaming screen time, things you do when you're alone. So you think about like playing a game on your phone or, something that you do that's bright, flashy, and you're kind of in by yourself. Mm-hmm. That's one type of screen time. And that's the screen time we want to minimize the most as parents at home with our students on our cell phones.
That's like dessert, little candy.
It's a little dessert. It's hey, you can have a little bit of time for that. And that's the thing we want to do the least amount of time. And one of the really nice things is that that's something that we don't work on, that we don't really use a lot in our schools, right? Our schools aren't using flashy one-on-one, bright, shiny color type applications. A lot of our things fall into those things at the bottom, the things that are a bit bigger that we want a little more of in our lives. And those are things around creativity, communication. So, all of those Canvas, creating documents, working on those things in CSD docs, the creativity of using Canva or Photoshop or drawing something. Those are the things that we want definitely students to engage in. It's still not all day, right? But those are, when we're looking at screen time, some of the things that are considered good uses of screen time. The same thing for apps and tools for organization. Looking at how they're doing those things, and then kind of above that is those collaborative pieces, things that they're doing with others. So when they're using a computer with a friend and they're working on something together, that is seen, and some of the research shows that that's a better use of screen time than on their own by themselves. And so that's one of the great things that Canyon's teachers are really focusing on, is making sure that they're providing good uses of the good screen time that we want them to, right? Using those creativity tools that we offer in the district, those organization, the kind of office suite tools that we want them to use, and limiting those kind of game moments and those kind of dessert fun things as a normal piece of their curriculum.
Yeah, so it's like a nutrient-dense, low-cal computer diet.
Definitely. We want them on that right-sized digital diet to make sure that they're getting what they need to and that they're successful, but also teaching them self-control. Because one of the things, when I just recently got my teenager a cell phone, and at first it was like, everything. We're on 24/7 trying to do all the things because it was new. And so we had to pull it back, and we had to talk about and teach, what types of things are you doing? And so talking to him about, well, what are you, you're playing this game. How does that help you, right? Or how is that making you a better person? How is that working you towards your goal or your promise to yourself? And so looking at that, and then he has an online game group with some friends that they FaceTime each other and they play this card game together every once in a while. I was like, that's a great use of that screen time, because you're collaborative, you're with friends, you're connecting, but I don't have to drive him somewhere. So it's like a plus for me as a parent as well. But he's able to now start realizing that. And when he asks to get an app downloaded, I'm always like, well, what kind of screen time is this going to be? Well, I need this for school. I'm using it to research something. Okay, so let's talk about that. Or, well, it just looked like a fun game. Okay, well, is that how much of your time is going to go on that? And so really looking at that in in some sort of balance, right? Because it's not an all or good thing. Because, same with food. Food's not just all good or all bad, right? There's good ones. There's ones you should have less. There's ones you should try and incorporate more. I try as much as I can, but the same thing goes with that digital diet and looking at screen time.
Yeah. Well, and I like, too, that you mentioned the role of parents. So it's so important. I mean, it's something that I struggle with, of course, as a parent every day, right? Being present for my children, putting my own phone down, modeling appropriate behavior, or I should say, smart use of technology behavior. Do we have some resources that you could point out for parents? I mean, you mentioned, like, where could they find this pyramid, for example?
Yeah, so we have some great resources and are coming out with more and more. So on the district website, we have a Parent Connections website that lists a bunch of information that we've collected and connected out there for parents. So we have lists of apps that to be kind of aware of, because new apps pop up every day, and how do we stay on board? So we have lists of, the top 10 apps to be on the lookout for.
Oh, great.
We've got all the information about how to get on Skyward, how to get on Canvas, information about what our filters are doing at school and those types of things. And then just how to have conversations with your students. We have a great phone-free dinner protocol of like how to have a screen-free dinner and like set that up and what you can do and those types of things that you can help with your students. Resources about tips of things to even ask your students about, because sometimes as parents, we don't actually know the questions to say like, oh, what is that technology thing I've never heard of? So it gives you tips and resources on how to do all of that. And then also along with that, we all have the Canyoneering Academy that is doing these parent nights, 3 times a year, where parents can come in and hear from different speakers throughout the district and from outside in our community about how to help their students in all sorts of areas. And I know that digital devices and digital citizenship is one of those areas that you can kind of learn about and hear more. And so being on the lookout for those things from the district website and communications is a powerful tool as well.
Yeah. And schools do a lot of things too regarding this same topic. And I know parent-teacher conferences that happen throughout the school year. Many schools will have like a digital citizenship booth or a table or someone there for parents to talk to. So I don't know if every school does that, but I just know I've heard over the years a lot of schools have been doing that specifically at back to school night and even parent-teacher conferences.
Yeah, and teachers are really kind of embedding digital citizenship lessons within their teaching, right, throughout the year.
Right.
And I think too, I want to mention really quickly, so I think the Canyoneering parent night that we had this year, we are actually going to be making recorded versions of those available online, and once we get that all uploaded, and we'll make sure that we put something on our website so the parents know where to find those. But there were some really great sessions on online safety and 504 supports for students and how to navigate Canvas and Skyward, how to understand as a parent how to use those tools.
Yeah, they're great resources for parents, and I think the best thing you can do as a parent when you don't know is reach out. Because you're probably not the only parent with that question. So reaching out to your teacher, to your principal, to your school, and just saying, hey, I have questions about this. Where can I learn more? Sometimes they can point you in directions that you maybe with a Google search wouldn't be able to find as easy. And it's definitely something that they want to do. They want to help support those parents and students the best way possible online and in school.
Sure. What you had mentioned, Justin, the filters that we have in place, right? So we do have filters in place to protect students from accessing inappropriate content when they're either using our Chromebooks or they're on our network, correct?
Yeah, so I think we really come at this in multiple ways. There's the legal requirements around filtering and the things that the state has put forth that we enact, and then we kind of go a step above that. And we also provide not only the filters, but the education around them. And so every year our schools are required to teach students about digital citizenship, how to be safe online, what those look like. We teach our teachers what's going on, what's coming up, and they do that throughout the year. And then they engage our parents as well with monthly tips, monthly information and communication that goes out about that. So really kind of brings all of those things together. So then we have our filters for anyone using our devices or on our network, but then we kind of go above just the normal, like setting a filter, is that we've started to gather from teachers and resources about what's best to use. What is the most powerful tool? So there's so many tools out there or resources or websites. We've started to gather and recommend to our teachers, hey, this is the most powerful thing. This one's great for students. This one's working really well. use this instead. And that recommendation has really helped bring the load down for teachers and having to search for tools or resources, but it also provides a streamlined kind of resource across the district that says, here's the best thing, right? So for example, Nearpod. Nearpod's our go-to tool. Use this. This is a great resource, and we have training around it. And then we also have the controls around it to help support our students. CSD Doc's another great example, Canvas, and then getting out kind of pulling out from those, maybe someone wants to use a website for, this thing. They can find out and see if this is safe for students. We have people here that look at those things and make sure that they're safe for students to access, that they're not collecting data unnecessarily, and all of those pieces, just to make sure that our students are safe. So we're letting the technology do the work, but we also have the people here doing work on top of that, just to make sure that there's that extra insulation.
And I understand we also teach digital literacy in our classrooms too, right? Which is to understand how to navigate the internet, right? Use it in a purposeful way. Understand where the information that you're seeing is coming from, if it's credible, right?
Well, and to be a smart consumer of the information that they're reading, because we all know you can Google anything. I think I Google it all the time, but it's understanding that the answers that come up, really being able to articulate and look at that and determine, is this a credible source? How to identify if something's a credible source? There's something called lateral reading that can actually allow students, that skill alone, I think even beyond just students, I think anyone can benefit from lateral reading, is being able to search for something, use those skills to identify if it's a credible source or not.
Yeah, I use lateral reading in my online shopping because I'll find a great deal on something and I'll be like, I want to buy this, but I don't know this company, I don't know this website, so I'll search the description somewhere else to see if it's on another website, or I'll look at somewhere a retailer I know that I trust and see are they is it a huge discount, because there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? So I'm like, and I use that there, and those skills are so powerful, and we're really lucky in Canyon School District to have certified teacher librarians in our middle and high schools that this is their content and core. They have core standards put out by the state that say it is the responsibility of these librarians, these teacher librarians, to teach students about digital literacy. It's the responsibility for all of our employees to make sure that our students know and access those things, but our teacher librarians kind of that special charge. And so they really take that on and make sure that students know how to search when they're looking to research for a paper, that they know not only the logistics of what keywords to use and things like that, but then when you find a source, how do you lateral read around it? How do you find out if that's an actual source? How do you go through that list of, what type of website is it? Who wrote it? What kind of money funded those things? And really providing our students the tools to be successful in school, but then also as they become an adult and kind of open up to the whole wide world of the internet and all of the information that's being thrown at them, they can be smart consumers of that and understanding, okay, this is what I saw. How do I find out if that's true, or where can I go for other information? And not just requiring one person to be the source of information.
Well, and I love that we do it every year. We have a focus of, intentionally doing this every year, because technology changes so quickly that, from one year to the next, there's a new threat or a new concern, or has some really big news, right? We talked about our common sense certification. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so our common sense certification. So every 3 years we go through this certification audit process. And so this year we just completed our common sense certification and audit. So what this means is all of our schools go through an audit process where they have to kind of list out, what did you do for digital citizenship? How did you teach your students? How many students did you teach? What were the topics? How did you support our parents? What did you do for your parents? And what did you do for your faculty at your school? And that goes through Common Sense, and then they kind of certify and say that school is Common Sense certified. And then after we get all of our schools audited and certified, the Common Sense takes a look at our district as a whole and says, what's your district plan? What are you doing? Does it meet our high standards for keeping students safe online and providing them those skills? And then they certify those districts. And we just were awarded our Common Sense certification, so we're really excited about that. Nice. It really just kind of is the perfect cherry on the top of all the hard and amazing work that our teachers and our students and families do in the district to keep students safe, because working and hearing from some other school districts that go through this, sometimes they have to kind of stop and implement new things and figure out how are we going to do that. And with Canyons, so much of it is already embedded in what we're doing for our parents, above and beyond what even common sense is asking and what the state requires as it relates to digital citizenship, that it was a great process. And common sense many times throughout the process just kind of mentioned how like, oh, that's great. I wish more people did that. I wish more districts did that. And it was a great thing to kind of point out to our, the faculty and the staff of Canyons District that are working to do this, and our great digital citizenship coordinators that are in every school that kind of manage this for those schools and the hard work that they're doing.
Well, and commonsense.org, right, is also a great website for parents to go for all kinds of tips
so powerful.
And tricks.
When I don't know an app that my student wants to download, like my son will be like, hey, I'm going to download this app. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I go to Common Sense because they have people who review it. They look at them, they rate them, they tell you what you'll see, what you'll find. They give it kind of a grade, and it's just a good resource when you don't know, when you just need to know information. They do books, they do movies, they do all sorts of kind of knowledge and media pieces that you can really gather from.
They also have some family resources regarding digital citizenship as well, because I know with our Dig Sit Week, we get some resources from Common Sense, but they actually have parent and family resources available for our families to access. All free, all downloadable.
All available online. We use a lot of their resources for our parent communications because they're so well done and they're so well researched and able to be kind of disseminated widely to our parents that they can use and then actually apply it that month. So all of our monthly tips kind of feature some of those things from Common Sense. So it's always a great place to start for any parent who's looking to get more information about what their student's doing online and how they can support them in being a safe student online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that we've covered a lot of ground today. I appreciate both of you being here, and maybe we'll chat again soon when we have an opportunity.
Oh, yeah, we love talking about this stuff. We'll nerd out all day long.
It is my favorite.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Connect Canyons, and I'm your host, Kirsten Stewart. A big thanks, as usual, to Stephanie Christensen for her editing skills. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe or tell a friend about us. And if you have any ideas for a story you'd like us to tell or a subject you'd like us to cover, email us at communications@canyonsdistrict.org.